What are the conditions of becoming a Catholic priest? Now, the answer is simple. You must be a man, you must have been baptized, and you must take up celibacy. The Catholic Church teaches that a priest should dedicate himself entirely to his vocation, and that he should essentially take the church as his spouse. Now, it's been like this for 1,000 years, but the tradition is now being challenged, and it is being challenged by no less an individual than the Pope himself. Pope Francis has said that celibacy should in fact be reviewed. He's called it temporary. Now, the question, of course, is, can the reformist Pope do away with this age-old tradition which binds a priest of the Catholic Church to celibacy? Now, listen in to what he had to say.
So, there is no contradiction for a priest to be able to marry. Celibacy in the Western Church is a temporal prescription. I don't know if it is resolved one way or the other, but it is temporary in this sense. It is not eternal, like priestly ordination, which is forever, whether you like it or not. Whether you leave or not is another matter, but it is forever. Celibacy, on the other hand, is a discipline.
Now, remember, this is not the first time that celibacy has in fact come under question. The tradition is old. But it wasn't always like this. It's hard to believe, but it wasn't always like this, even in the Catholic Church. St. Peter, the first pope, was in fact married. Celibacy officially became a requirement for priesthood only in the 11th century, when Pope Gregory VII had issued a decree. And under that, all priests were required to remain celibate. A priest also was expected not to, in fact, ever get married in his life, and it was expected that the bishops would, of course, enforce this vow of celibacy for all the priests. So what made Pope Gregory to decide this? Now, it wasn't just devotion towards the church, it was also about money. The clergy without children were more likely to leave their wealth to the church. The decree stuck. Celibacy has been the norm ever since. But there have been exceptions. Now, take the Eastern Rite, for example. It takes celibacy as a discipline, not as a doctrine. Now, there is a room for a certain level of diversity. The priests, of course, get a choice. Pope Francis has also pointed out that there is a possibility that this tradition, which it's hard to believe, could potentially change within the Catholic Church.
No creo.
There are married priests in the Catholic Church, and the whole Eastern Rite is married, all the Eastern Rite. Here in the Curia, we have one married priest. I saw him today, and he has his wife and son. He comes and goes.
Now, the issue is not new. Pope Francis, of course, has hinted of some changes back in 2020. He said that he was open to the possibility of ordaining married men. Why? Because concerns were mounting. There was a shortage of priests in the Amazon region, and church celibacy was being blamed for this. The Latin American bishops have recommended that married men should be allowed to become priests in the Catholic Church. This would, of course, be a revolutionary change, but despite showing openness, Pope Francis had rejected the landmark proposal. He's proceeded with a lot of caution because it is not easy to overturn a tradition that has been in exercise for 1,000 years. Polarization is also an issue that has deepened within the church. Traditionalists have opposed his papacy, and then there was Pope Benedict XVI's indirect intervention. The old Pope had pledged to remain hidden from the world, and yet he remained a quiet critic of Pope Francis. He broke his silence and reaffirmed the value of priestly celibacy. So how did he do that? By co-authoring a bombshell of a book. It was called From the Depths of Our Hearts, Priesthood, Celibacy, and the Crisis of the Catholic Church. Its excerpts were released at an interesting time. It was when Pope Francis was mulling on exceptions to celibacy. Was it Benedict's public attempt to sway Francis's decision? Even if it wasn't, it seems to have worked. Pope Benedict is no more, but several other challenges still remain. While Pope Francis has been celebrated by the liberals, he has faced widespread criticism from the conservatives. Now, many see Francis's ideologies as a grave threat to orthodoxy and tradition. The debate over celibacy, of course, continues, and it's not an easy debate within Catholic circles. Let's put it that way. Progressives have said that it is high time that the church recognizes the demands of the devoted. The conservatives have called the idea as a threat, nothing less than a threat to priesthood. Now, Pope Francis's recent statements have rekindled this question. Could the Roman Catholic Church lift this vow of celibacy that is an absolute requirement for a person to become a priest? Will the reformist Pope bring about this landmark change? But most important of all, will Catholics be willing to accept a priest within them who is in fact a married man? This is not an easy debate. The Catholic Church has been debating it, and will of course hear more on this issue in the days to come. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.